The 2019 winner of the World Poker Tournament claimed a cash prize of $10 million after beating out 8,000 other competitors. Poker is one of the most popular forms of gambling in the world, with millions of people playing some form every month. Something any good gambler will tell you is you have to weigh your risk versus your reward. In simplest terms, this means you have to assess what you stand to gain against what you stand to lose before making a gamble. This speech will be about society's views of criminal defendants and how it can bias the criminal justice system and make it impossible to get a fair trial in this country, and greatly increase the gamble that defendants have to take when they take their cases to court. The point of the criminal justice system in the United States of America is to find those who have committed crimes and separate them from society by sending them to prison. If people cannot get fair trials and an innocent person is sent to prison for a crime they did not commit, then everyone feels safe while the actual criminal will remain at large. I've done an extensive amount of research on this issue, and I've done an informative speech just last week about this, so I feel that I am qualified to now give my opinion on this. And at the end of the speech, hopefully, I will have convinced you that the way our society sees criminal defendants is problematic, and it biases our legal system and how their ability to get a fair trial if they do make it in that court. Now, most of us hopefully do not ever have contact with the criminal justice system. That's something we all try to avoid, but we do all have a vested interest in making sure that it works properly. And to go over my main points, I'll be stressing three main points actually, which will be: the first is we will first look at our founding documents to kind of infer how the founding fathers wanted criminal defendants to be viewed by society. Then we will look at statistics to see how the criminal justice system actually works and what your chances are of coming out with a fair trial. And then finally, I will be talking about society's views and how they have affected these two systems. So first, to understand how society views criminal defendants, we need to understand how society was intended to view them. This brings us into our first main point, which is when we examine our founding documents, it becomes clear to anyone who's even taken a glance at the Constitution that the founding fathers thought it was very important for anyone who was accused of a crime to be seen as completely innocent of that crime until they are proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, hence the term innocent until proven guilty. Evidence of this is found in the Fifth Amendment, reading directly from it, quote, "Nor shall he be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself," end quote. Of course, the Fifth Amendment is famous, used all the time in movies and TV. It is to help avoid incriminating yourself. This means that you cannot be forced to testify or give evidence against yourself without a warrant. This is the founding fathers likely included this because they understood how important it was that criminal defendants are able to maintain the appearance of innocence regardless of whether they're innocent or not, to make sure that the jury or the judge is not biased. Secondly, we'll be looking at statistics to get a better idea of how the criminal justice system actually treats defendants once they are charged with a crime. And according to the United States federal courts on NOLO.com, a conservative estimate of the number of criminal defendants who never go to trial is 90%. That's a conservative estimate of the amount of people who are charged with crimes who never have a trial. And the reason for this is that there are guilty pleas. The vast majority of these people end up taking guilty pleas to generally to get a lighter sentence and to avoid a long trial. Guilty pleas are seen as a win-win for both sides because the government saves money. They don't have to pour a lot of resource into preparing a prosecution. The defense also saves time and money as they do not have to respond with a defense. And so when 9 out of 10 defendants who are charged with a crime come out and say that they're guilty, that they did it, and they don't want a trial, it is easy to assume that if you've been accused of a crime, well, there's a 90% chance that you did it, or 9 out of 10 times you did it. And while it is easy to make this assumption, it is worth looking at other reasons a criminal defendant might plead guilty. Many criminal defendants come from lower socioeconomic standings and may have jobs and families that they need to tend to, and they don't have the time to go through a long trial that could take months and sometimes even years, and then serve an even longer prison sentence. So in many cases, especially with things like possessions of small amounts of drugs or small weapons violations, they choose instead just to plead and get a much lighter sentence so they can be reunited with their family and get back to working sooner. Finally, we will be looking at our society's current views of criminal defendants. So as I've said, as has been stated previously, that 90% of those who are charged with crimes never go to trial, and those who do decide to go to trial, 83% of them will be convicted. So this means that of the 10% that do go to trial, 8 out of every 10 of them approximately are found guilty of their crimes. So what we need to ask ourselves is, do we think that the law enforcement and criminal justice system gets it right 90% of the time? 90% of the time, do you think that if someone is charged, they are guilty? And if you think, well, okay, maybe not 90%, maybe you think they only get it right 80% of the time. Okay, well, under this current system, that means that 10% of the people who go to prison are innocent. Maybe it's 75%, 15% going to prison, people who are innocent. So next time you see on the news that someone has been charged with a crime, think about the gamble they have to take and the massive odds that they are going up against, and really consider the facts of the case when looking as an outsider perspective. And the assumption of guilt, while it is tempting, is important that we stay away from that as a society. Now that we've gone over the intended view of criminal defendants that our society should hold from the founders, we've gone over statistics that show how your case usually ends up if you do get charged with a crime. And finally, we've taken a closer examination of society's views and how that may bias the system. I think we can come to close that the way our society views defendants as being guilty most of the time, or maybe he didn't do that, but he's probably guilty of something. When those kind of attitudes come up, as we can see through these statistics, that trickles down to the criminal justice system and can affect a lot of people. Thank you.